Sup guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of the Training Diaries. An episode where I have a conversation regarding everything to do with training, nutrition, workouts, pacing, everything to do with what goes into running a sub 2:45 marathon. A podcast style episode that you can chuck on while you're picking out your favorite outfit for Saturday's park run. So I ran the Sydney Marathon yesterday, and I can honestly say that it was one of my favorite marathons that I've ever run. It was truly beautiful, and you can expect a recap later on in this episode. Last week, there wasn't really much tapering going on with the Sydney Marathon not being a key race, and I still wanted to keep the foot on the gas as much as possible. This meant that it was business as usual leading up to the weekend, where it changed a little bit, but overall, I still ended up with 116 kilometers in total mileage for the week. So let's deep dive into the training week that was the 9th to the 15th of September. This video series is once again proudly sponsored by Aid Station. They're keeping me fueled and hydrated for my preparations to run 2:45 at the Melbourne Marathon, and have done so for the past 2 years. I can always count on Aid Station to have the best products and super fast shipping. So check them out if you want to support me by supporting them. Now, back to you, Dave. Okay, so kicking it off on Monday, I'm just gonna go straight out the gates and say, I was incredibly sore on Monday. For most of last week, to be fair. I was so sore just because the day before I ran the Bridge to Brisbane, which was a 10K race, and that was an all-out sprint with lots of hills, which I neglect, and my calves had left the chat. They were gone. Very sore. You know how I was talking about a couple of weeks ago that just one of my calves was sore from that beer mile? I pretty much had the same amount of fatigue, but in both, which was good in a way that it evened it out, but it was bad. It just made running it was a punish. And with the marathon coming up on the Sunday, yeah, I was getting a little bit worried that they were gonna be sore on the weekend. I won't spoil how they ended up, but yeah, at this stage, I was pretty, I'm not stressed. I don't stress much, to be honest, but it was definitely in the back of my mind. But we started off, Monday is recovery, so we had a recovery treadmill. I just did 50 minutes. This one was at 5:15 pace, and we ran 9.62K. So it's usually around 10K, or I just try to get out there for 50 minutes. Sometimes I split up the treadmills for morning and afternoon, so I don't have to run for as long at a time. But this time, I felt good enough that I just got it done. So that was Monday. I wore the Mag Max, the Puma Mag Max, the recovery shoes. Then we come to Tuesday. So Tuesday is my session day with the run group down at Main Beach. So we started off with a 5K warm up as per. I did these ones in the, I also did these ones in the Mag Max. Starting to really like these shoes, to be fair. And I really do see the recovery benefits. So if I'm really sore, I'll warm up in those as well. And then we get to the session, all right? So the session that we had planned was a threshold sandwich, okay? So it was gonna be a 3K rep, then it was 5 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and then it was a 3K rep to finish, okay? So if you think of it as a threshold sandwich, the 2 longer reps on the end, and they're sandwiching in those minute on, minute offs. I was feeling very sore. I've written here in the description, feeling very sore in my calves. Hills broke me on Sunday. A laughing face. But I managed to team up with Michael, who I have mentioned on this, I was about to say podcast, on this episode series before. He was hitting the 3K reps at his marathon pace that he's aiming for. So his goal was around 4-minute pace. We ended up running 3:55 pace on average for those 3K, or for the first 3K reps. At this stage, I was feeling all right. My calves were a bit tender, but I thought we'll see how I go with this session. This session, to be fair, I was just gonna see how I go, pull it back if I need to, which I was already pulling it back running with Michael, and just seeing how my calves feel. And if I feel like they're starting to worry me, then I'm just gonna pull it right back and then just easy jog. So I made it through the first 3K at 3:55 average. And then we did 5 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off. The 1 minute ons, we averaged around 3:40 pace. So again, nothing crazy for me really at all. But by that 5th rep, I could really feel my calves. I think it was just, that pace was just a little bit too hot for them, and the fatigue was starting to set in, and yeah, they weren't feeling very good. So for the last 3K, I didn't run with Michael, I let him just leave me. I think he ran 3:55s again, and then I pulled it back and I ran 4:15 average. And so that was the average over the 3K, but if you look at the splits, the first one was like 4:05, and then it was 4:15, and then it was like 4:30. So I just slowly deteriorated as those 3K reps went on. And I was thinking, did I go too hard? Have I fucked myself for this weekend? A few different questions going through my mind, but I think I was okay. I was semi-sensible, and I still wanted to kind of get some work in because it's not a taper week. I still wanted to still get some good load in that week. So we ran for the workout part of that session, 10.26 Ks and average 4:15 pace. But I ran in the New Balance SC Elite V4s, so that was a total of just over 15K for the Tuesday. Then we come to Wednesday. So Wednesday, I've got a little extra 3K that I did here. I did a little run with my dog Chili and Michaela on the bike. We did 3Ks, and that was averaging 5:15 pace. That was just a little, I guess you could call it a warm up for my run, but that went for just over 15 minutes, and I usually do an hour on the Wednesday, so I still had 45 minutes to make up on my own, and that is what I did. I just finished off until I hit 60 minutes. My carbs were sadly still written off, I've said here. Maybe a 6 out of 10. 10 being they feel really good, 0 being they feel really, really shit, like unrunnable. So I was in the bit of the middle there. I was in the middle. But I ran 9.67K, and that was at 4:39 pace for 45 minutes on the Wednesday. I also wore the New Balance SC V4 again, just because I took a page out of the book that I did a couple of weeks ago when my calves were really sore, and I wore carbon plate, wore a carbon plated shoe just to give my calves a bit of a rest. And genuinely, I do feel the difference, and I definitely felt like it helped. So I opted to wear those on the Wednesday. Then we come to the Thursday. So Thursday, we've got my 80-minute run. I did this one at 4:45 pace and 16.82 kilometers in total. I ran out to the lighthouse, all through the spit, through the trails. At this stage, my calves were actually feeling a lot better. And I wore the Mizuno Neo Vistas for this run. Made my way all the way out to the lighthouse, and every time I do it, I'm just reminded how bloody good that run is, and it is really enjoyable. And that's why I always save that route, whatever, for the 80-minute runs. Those are the most enjoyable, and that's like my longest run in the week. And the reason I'm doing like this and pointing over there is because behind me there's a window, and I can see the spit. I can see that. I can see the trails from my window, so that's why I'm pointing over there. Then we move on to Friday. So Friday was the day I flew out to Sydney. So I was flying out to Sydney for the marathon with BeforeYouSpeak coffee. I was flying out Friday morning, and then I flew back Sunday evening. So my flight was at 8:20, and it was about a 40-minute drive to the airport. So I tried to get in as much as I could with the run group. Still got a little mini session in, but I did the 5K warm up. That was at 4:50s. I wore the Mizuno Neo Vistas for that warm up. Obviously my calves are feeling a little bit better, so that's why I opted to wear those. And then I pretty much just did what I could. I didn't really have much time. I had about 35 minutes worth of a session to do before I had to race home, and then pretty much have breakfast and leave to go to the airport. So I opted to just do 34 minutes. That's just how much it worked out. And I kind of did it at a bit of a tempo. So the session the crew were doing, they were doing like 2x4K. So I did the first 4K with Michael, and we did that at around 4-minute pace, or just a little bit slower. So that was about my LT1 or my marathon effort, I would say. Rather than doing the extra 4K with him, I kind of just turned around and then ran it back in. But I didn't really run it back in at an easy pace. I kind of just kept it at about 4:15s, 4:20 per K until I made it to the 34 minutes. I also bought a brand new pair of Alphafly 3s and I was planning on wearing them for the Sydney Marathon, so I wanted to test them out and just really be reminded of the shoe. And I remember like when I used to own it back when I had the Proto colorway and I ended up selling them, that I really liked them, but yeah, I wasn't going to gamble and just wear them for the first time at the Sydney Marathon, even though I have worn them before. I wanted to do a little bit of a session and I wanted to kind of touch on that marathon pace in them as well, which is exactly what I did. So that worked out really well. And yeah, I loved them. So yeah, they were definitely a top choice to wear for the Sydney Marathon in the next couple of days. Yeah, for the session, I ran 8.21 Ks at 4:10 average and we were running for 34 minutes. So I ended up doing about 13K for the morning, couple of K short to what I would usually do, but I thought that was a pretty good effort knowing that I had to get to the airport super early. We come to the Saturday. So the Saturday, woke up in Sydney, woke up in the motherland, and we had a shakeout run scheduled with Unofficial Run Club. And we're all headed down as a crew, all the Before You Speak coffee crew. And that's pretty much where I got to know Ollie. He was the one taking little clips of me and I was getting some footage of him. This shakeout run was probably the most scenic and most beautiful run I was about to say that I've ever done, but shakeout run I've ever done, surely. So we started off like under the bridge and then we went up the stairs, went over the Sydney Harbour Bridge, came down, we went down past the Opera House, and it was just, it was stunning, absolutely stunning. So that was 6.17 Ks at 5:40 pace average. To be fair, we were walking upstairs and stuff, and it was quite a hilly route. If I had a PB marathon the next day, I would have been like, shit, I'm working a bit hard here, to be fair. But it was really cool. There would have been hundreds of people doing this run as well. So yeah, that was an experience in itself. And yeah, only ran about 6K for that day. So a little bit less mileage than I would do on a regular week, but I'm thinking, I'm running the marathon the next day, so I think it'll kind of even out anyway. Because remember, I wasn't trying to do a taper that week. I was still trying to keep the foot on the gas, but obviously trying to be sensible because marathons are freaking hard. But that's the Saturday, guys. Oh, and I wore the Asics Super Blast, the ultimate travel shoe. If you can pick one shoe to take with you on to travel with, that'll do it all. Asics Super Blast 2 is your freaking go. I think on the Friday I did 30,000 steps in them, just from like the morning run and just walking around. I did like 25,000 on Saturday. And then yeah, Sunday, I think we ended up doing 50,000 steps. Insanity. But speaking of Sunday, we come to Sunday, which was the Sydney Marathon event, the big day. And yeah, one of my favorite days of the year so far, and easily my favorite marathon that I've run. Oh yeah, I would go as far as saying that's probably my favorite marathon that I've run, for a combination of reasons. One, I wasn't running as hard as I wasn't going for a PB. Two, just seeing a new city for the first time. And then three was just the atmosphere was insane. Like they're trying to make it a major and it was just incredible. It was incredible. But let's go. Let's look at the splits and let's run through the Sydney Marathon, shall we? So the Sydney Marathon, guys, we came in at 3 hours, 12 minutes and 54 seconds for the official time. Where do I even start with this, to be fair? So as the day started, guys, I know I spoke about, oh, you guys wouldn't have even seen the vlog yet. Jeez, I'm so like all over the place with when these vlogs are coming out. The Sydney Marathon full race day vlog and weekend vlog is gonna come out this weekend. So hang out for that. But I know you guys are here for that recap. So let's just get into it, eh? So the day started off just as usual, chaotic, especially when you have to try to fit some vlogging in. You think you have all the time in the world and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, I gotta leave in 10 minutes. So quickly shoved all my gels in my pocket and then I was on my way. We actually had to catch the train to the event, which is something I've never done before. But I'm gonna say, like, I did enjoy it. It was pretty fun. It was also quite a windy and cold morning. The weather said that it was gonna be 8 degrees, but it felt like 1 degree because of the wind, and I definitely felt that. I was also in a bit of a dilemma because it was so freaking cold, and the only jumpers I packed were ones that I didn't want to bail on. Like I didn't want to like throw them away. So I resorted to just wearing a shirt over my singlet, and that was it. So I was absolutely freezing, but the good vibes and the energy just kept me warm, you could say. And I was like saying this over the weekend, but being cold is a choice, it's a mindset. So I was just like, I'm warm, walking around. But yeah, we made it to the event. Of course, had to go to the toilet, spent like half an hour in the lines. And then because I didn't have my phone on me, which in hindsight, I should have just carried it, but whatever, I didn't want to run with it. It was really hard to find anyone. So Ollie and we couldn't find Tommy or Marty. So we ended up not running with them, which was totally fine. But yeah, it was unfortunate because I just wanted to like experience that with Tommy and Marty and that. But I still got this amazing experience with like my new friend Ollie, who I met on the trip, who's also with BeforeYouSpeak, and he actually lives at Palmy, like not far away from me at all, the Gold Coast. So we're both Gold Coast locals, and yeah, so I ended up running with him. He said that he wanted to run under 3 hours and 15 minutes, and it just so happened that I was looking at running 3 hours 15 to 20. So I said, let's go. I'll pace you. I say pace, but we were running it together. Like I wasn't like his pacer or anything like that. But we did it together. And you guys know the time. We ultimately got him there. We got him there with a couple minutes to spare as well. So like shout out to Ollie firstly, just for like absolutely beast moding it. He's like he's a hybrid athlete. So he does like high rocks and running. So like, I can't believe how well he did. Absolutely smashed it. But so it was just us two running through. And yeah, we started off the race just after 6:20. It was a bit of a chaos. We ended up in zone B because of the crowds and everything else, but whatever, we started the race, and once you're running, you're running. The crazy thing about Sydney is it's net downhill, and I didn't really look at the elevation at all of this course, but it honestly felt like the first 4K I was going down the bridge to Brisbane. It felt like I was literally running downhill, like reasonably steep downhill for the first 4Ks of the race, which is something I've never experienced before. And you can literally see here the elevation. The first K is minus 44 meters elevation. The next one is +7, so a little bit up. And then it's -10, -20, -11 for the next few Ks. Like, it made me think, like, it would be a pretty quick course if you were trying to run for a PB. Like, it would be a very quick course. But basically, the goal was to sit around 4:38, I think, to get the sub 3:15 or 4:37. So we were just trying to dance around that 4:35 pace as much as we could, just so that we could sneak just under that 3:15. But the first like, I guess 10Ks, we were sort of hovering around that 42, 4:37, 4:30, 4:29. Basically, just depending on the downhills, we were actually banking up a fair bit of time in that first 10K. The 11th and 12K were a 4:12 and a 4:11 split, which is, you can see here, it's a -7 and a -3 elevation off the back of a -9. So yeah, lots and lots of downhill. And we managed to just basically hold pace for a fair whack of time, all the way up until about the 19th K or about the 20th K. We kind of did some math in our head after running past the K markers, and we realized, I think we're under pace here. We're going a bit slow. Partly caused by Ollie needing to go to wee. I think he did twice, which is kind of insane. Like, you would lose a fair bit of time. But I just said to him, when you try to catch up to me, I will pull back, but just take your time, take a couple of Ks to get up to me if you need to. The last thing you need to do is like wee and then sprint your way back to me, and then you're gassed. So it's a long game. You got to play it smart. So if I could recommend, if I could give advice to anybody that needs to go to the toilet in a marathon, just make up your time slowly so you don't just gas out trying to make it back and burn way more energy than you think you need. But basically, we got to the halfway mark, so 21 Ks in, and I did the math in my head. We're like, shit, I think we're gonna be over if we stay at this pace. Ollie said he's feeling good, so we were like, all right, let's pick it up and we'll just see how you feel. So from the halfway mark, we pretty much ran 4:30 splits or under for the rest of the race. So you can see here 4:30, 4:28, 4:29, 4:30, 4:30, 4:28, 28, 30. And we were just ticking away Ks like clockwork. Every time I looked down, it was 4:28, 4:28. I was also keeping in mind that my watch was 500 meters over for every kilometer marker. So I knew that my overall pace on my watch would be slower than the actual pace that we are going through hitting the K markers. So I did keep that in mind as well. But I thought, let's just sit at 4:30 pace. I kept looking over my shoulder to see how he was going. He was all smiles, sunshines, rainbows, thumbs up all the time. Let's go, brother. Knuckles every now and then. So he was looking really good, and I thought, I think he's got this in him. Let's just keep around this pace. And to be fair, around that 4:30 pace was so much more comfortable for me to run in as well. And we just maintained that for pretty much the rest of the race. Sydney was, it was a whirlwind. Like, it's hard to even remember the course, but it was very scenic. We went out to Hyde Park, where it was about as windy as it could physically get running a race. Like, there was a few times where it would hit you like a brick wall and you'd be like, oof. You have to hold your hat because it was gonna blow off. And such an enjoyable, such a scenic marathon. I was having such a good time. Like, my heart rate stayed between 150 and 160 for the majority of the race, to be fair. And I remember so clearly a point of, I think I hit 33 Ks. And when I looked down, I saw the 33K marker and I sort of checked in with myself, like, how am I feeling? And I just got this crazy feeling of just energy and like the realization that I am feeling so good. Like, usually at this time in a marathon, I'd be feeling dusty as, and this time I was like feeling like my legs were feeling fresh, like my heart rate was so good, I was well fueled, and I just felt so good. And I was just like, and I just took it in, and I was like, all right, I need to really just try to enjoy this marathon and just look around and just like really just soak it all in. So that's pretty much what I did for the rest of the race. And I think that was like just being present then and there really made the rest of the marathon just so much more enjoyable for me and like so much more of an experience. You know, sometimes it's a bit of a whirlwind and you forget to take it in. But yeah, I made like a conscious effort to take it in, and that was pretty cool. We got to like the 38K mark, and you can see the downhill is crazy here. Like, my heart rate was actually 149. And we ran a 4:14 split with a negative 22 meter elevation, which is nuts. And the next K even as well, 4:18 split, negative 14 elevation. There was just crazy downhills in this marathon, which made for such a fun race. Then we get to the 40th K, 41st K, and remember, I was a little bit over, so the last 3K was a net uphill, which was a bit cheeky. I was feeling good, but I know that if I was going for a PB running at my absolute limit, that would probably break me a fair bit, but I was feeling good, so I was enjoying them. And then you come to the last, like, it says 0.7, but yeah, this is probably like the last half a K of the race was minus 25 elevation. So the way the marathon finished, the last 500 meters was down this really long straight, and at the end of the straight you can see the water, so you know that you're coming around to that opera house and you are absolutely fanging it. Like, we were running, it says 3:30 pace here on average, which is nuts. Like, and we were probably going faster than that for some of it, to be fair. And you're just running down this unreal hill, perfect decline where you can actually like open up the legs and stride out without having to break yourself. And you're just smashing it down this hill. There's crowds of people, like probably 3 or 4 people deep each side. And everyone's screaming, and it's just honestly like euphoric. Like, you could not wipe the smile off my face. I was just so like giddy. I felt like this feeling in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, I love this shit so much. And then we were running down this hill, and then basically you see the water, and then you turn, and then there's the opera house there. And yeah, words can't describe what that feeling was like. Coming down that hill, turning that corner, and then you just look up and you see the opera house, all the people, the finish line's right there, you're running up the carpet. You got to do a couple of these ones, and like, you're just yelling out, like, you're just wooing. Like, you'd never woo any other time in your life until you're finishing a marathon running down that straight. You're like, woo! woo, and you're just doing random shit. It's just like, it overtakes you like your emotions just overtake you, and it's just, yeah, it's just such a good feeling. And if you haven't run a marathon, you've got that to look forward to, because yeah, it's unbeatable. And like I said, guys, we came in at 3 hours, 12 minutes and 54 seconds, which was not a PB for me, but it was a much more enjoyable race than my last marathon, the Gold Coast Marathon. Not only because of the less fatigue, but I just think it was just the scenes and the environment, and just the amount of people that are running around you was just the step above from the Gold Coast Marathon. So if you were thinking about running the Sydney Marathon next year, if it's been on your mind, if you're and ahhing, then let this be me telling you it is a good idea. So when they come on sale, 100% buy yourself a ticket and treat yourself, because it is an experience you do not want to forget. But that's going to conclude the race recap and the training week breakdown segment of the Training Diaries series. What we're going to get into now, guys, we're going to get into some viewer Q&As where I answer your questions as honestly and as off the cuff as I can. And you guys have sent these in on my Instagram. Remember, if you do want to send in any questions, you can either message me, reply to my Instagram question box, or you can comment your question down below on this video, and then I'll hopefully get to it next week. But yeah, let's get into the first question. Alrighty, so the first question comes in from Jamie Blake Crozier, and he said, "Mate, solid effort. Was the one glove a style thing?" So, if you guys have seen any of the photos or the content from Sydney Marathon, I had one glove on. The reason I did it is not for a style thing, although I do think the glove is sick. The reason I wear gloves in the first place, or have worn gloves in the first place, is because at the start of winter, I'll try to briefly run through this. Basically, at the start of winter, my hands would swell and get like itchy, and I couldn't even close my fists sometimes. And I went to a naturopath, I narrowed it down, it was a circulation issue. So when I know that it's gonna be really cold or really windy and cold, I'll wear the gloves just so that my hands don't swell up. Like I said, it's chaotic at the start of the marathon, or like before you leave your hotel, you're trying to get everything ready. And as I was about to leave, I realized I hadn't put any of my gels in my pockets. So I took one of the gloves off, shoved all the gels and stuff in my pockets, and then of course I left without putting the other glove on. And I didn't realize I only had one glove on until I was walking to the train station, and it was too late to go back. So I thought one glove is better than no glove, and that's why I only had one glove on. Not because it's a fashion statement, although I think it looked kind of cool. What do you guys reckon? And then moving on to the second question. So this one is from Michael. He's from my run group back in Burpengary. Shout out to you, bro. So any tips on making gels easier to have on the run? I do actually have some tips. So one thing that I've learned from racing and taking lots of gels in is pick the easiest scenario for you to get a gel in. So what I mean by that is, don't have a gel on an uphill, or when you're really struggling. Try to relax your breathing and choose a favorable part, if you can, of the marathon to get it in. So ideally, if you can get it on a nice little downhill, or you haven't just punished your way up a hill and you've actually been running flat for a while and you've gained your breath back and you're in a good place, then I would have my gel then. All right, because the difference between having a gel now or in a couple of minutes, like what is that? There's no difference, to be fair. So just try to make it as easy as possible for you to get the gel in, so that you struggle as less as possible, if that makes sense. And also another thing you can do is, rather than just taking the gel in one big gulp and then it really throws off your breathing and you're chewing on it and you're trying to get it down, you can take that gel in a couple of goes. So have a little sip, doesn't disrupt your breathing too much, you're not too thrown out of whack, have a little bit more, and just have it over a couple of 100 meters if you need to. You're still gonna be getting the feeling in, and this way it doesn't disrupt your breathing and you can still stay as locked in as possible. But that's just some things that I've learned as well, along me just doing races. And you can also, it's good to maybe even time it before you get into a drink station as well, so you can wash it down with a little bit of water. If you've got those real sticky, gooey gels, or whatever
whatever floats your boat, whatever gel floats your boat. I think doing those little things just, you know, they might not seem that much, but they add up and it makes for just an easier experience getting your gels in. Then we come to the final question. We've got this one from Jason Turner. He said, what effort out of 10 was the Sydney Marathon? So effort out of 10. If 10 out of 10 effort would be me gunning for a sub 2:45 marathon, then I would say that the Sydney Marathon was probably about a 7 out of 10. There wasn't really any point in the marathon where I was doubting myself, to be fair. But just like any marathon, all marathons, your legs do really start to fatigue. But the difference between running at your limit and scaling it back, like 45 seconds per K is astronomical. To put into perspective, my Sunday long runs that I've been doing with the run group, we start off at about 4:45 pace and we finish at around 4:20, and that will be for a 35K long run. So the way I was kind of looking at Sydney Marathon is it's an extra long run for my block, and it was around about my long run pace anyway. But for this one, I was going to be well fueled, like way more fueled than I usually would for a long run. The vibes are going to be higher. It's going to be so much cooler than I'm used to. So I knew that it wasn't going to be much of a problem running the Sydney Marathon, and I knew that I was just going to be able to really soak it in and enjoy it rather than it being a slog. And to be fair, there wasn't really any time that I was in doubt or struggling. I really just got to enjoy it. So yeah, I would say that it was probably about a 7 out of 10 effort, maybe 6, maybe 7 out of 10 effort. And that's not me trying to brag. I just think running is so relative. But that's going to conclude the question segment of the Training Diaries, and it's going to conclude the video. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel if you're new so you don't miss any of my future Melbourne 2:45 series content. We're about 4 weeks out from Melbourne. After doing Sydney this weekend, it has got me absolutely toey to race and just rip the lid off this marathon. I'm so ready. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.